I'm Shruti Aniraj and you're watching Tax Talks, where we break down tax concepts and discuss their impact ahead of Budget 2025. Today we are focusing on GST expectations, a crucial topic for businesses and taxpayers alike. Joining us is Sandeep Agrawal, founder and director of Teamlease Regtech, to help us understand the possibilities. Thanks for joining us, Sandeep.
Hi, Shruti. Good afternoon.
So let's start with the big one first, Sandeep. What GST changes do you think we should look out for in Budget 2025?
Changes to GST laws generally are first recommended by GST Council and then it gets implemented. And hence we have not seen over the years a lot of changes indicated in the budget itself. But the budget may lay down a directive for further simplification. Now, from an expectation perspective, I think we can talk about a couple of expectations that the businesses have today from budgets or GST department. One major one is simplification of return filing processes, specifically around input credits, which is GSTR 2B, and the related reconciliations that the corporate have to do before filing GSTR 3B. This is a cumbersome process, and to handle this, the department has been working on a new system which is called as Invoice Management System, IMS. It is yet to be launched, but we are expecting once fully implemented, this should simplify the overall return filing process both for small businesses and large corporates. Second important expectation was further reduction or simplification of tax regime, which is the tax slabs. This has been getting discussed over the years, but I believe it's a complex process. We can expect budget to either make a broader statement around its intent and timelines if possible. One more area of expectation for large corporates has been on inclusion of petroleum products and electricity. This has a direct impact on the cost. But again, there is no clarity. We are expecting some statements on its inclusion or its intent from the government.
So there's a talk about bringing fuel and electricity under GST. Do you see that happening this year?
Fuel and electricity is a major source of revenue for state governments. And finding consensus between state governments and central governments around that has always been difficult. This will definitely reduce the overall cost for corporates, but I don't foresee in the short term the government will be able to implement it. It might take several years for it to materialize.
And small businesses, Sandeep, often struggle with GST filing. Do you think they'll finally get some relief going forward?
So I think earlier GST department has simplified the compliance requirements for small businesses. They were made to actually file it on a quarterly basis. I understand, considering the bandwidth and their resource availability, it is still difficult for them to manage these compliances on a quarter basis. The new IMS systems, which is under implementation, we expect once implemented fully, it should simplify the overall process for small businesses. But at this point of time, we can't comment whether this will support the small businesses or further create problem statements for small businesses. There is one more angle on the frequency. There has been discussions or extending this quarterly filing to annual or half-yearly filing. I believe there are practical challenges in further extension. Once I, as a small business, file it on a quarterly basis, my customers who are large corporates gets that input credit after I file it. So it may be a counterproductive solution where large businesses may not encourage inclusion or taking services from small businesses. So I don't foresee any changes in the filing frequencies. There is a possibility of increasing the threshold for GST audit for small businesses, but I have not heard anything on this as recommendations from GST Council in the recent past. So again, in the immediate near future, I don't foresee any further relief to small businesses on GST compliances.
Okay, and as a follow-up, can we hope for fewer GST slabs to make things simpler for taxpayers?
This has been an ask for many years. I think it's getting discussed. It has been discussed at GST Council as well, but there has been no update. The problem statement is that it is a complicated task to change rates. If you have to change rates, it impacts many stakeholders. Central government gets impacted, states gets impacted, industry, technology has to be revamped. There are a lot of changes that have to happen at the back end for a small change in rates as well. Now, this is getting discussed, but I don't foresee anything in the near future again for changes to small tax rates.
The exporters often complain about delayed refunds. Can one expect this budget to bring some relief in this regard?
So if you look at the background, there is a time frame provided by GST for refunds. The department has to ensure that the refunds are sanctioned within 60 days from the date of the application. And if not sanctioned, there is a rate prescribed as interest that has to be paid to the taxpayer. But still there are delays. We'll have to understand the reasons. I believe the delays has mainly on account of complex requirements or procedural requirements, which is documents required for filing these claims. Specifically, one more reason is there are a lot of claims made, but the bandwidth available is not up to the mark. So, there are a lot of backlogs available with the department for claims. So, expectation have been always to reduce or simplify the documentation procedures. But I believe for a permanent solution, department have to think through on enhancing their technology, a technology which can actually facilitate auto validations, just like what income tax has implemented, TDS systems have implemented. Once, to the extent possible, validation can happen automatically. The burden on department can reduce, and then the time frame or the TAT for refund can also go off. But technological enhancements always take a lot of time, so I don't foresee again in any near future this can happen. So department will have to continue to work internally to streamline their internal processes manually and expedite the overall process of refunds.
Again, compliance is a big challenge for many taxpayers. Sandeep, what steps do you think the government should take to encourage better compliance?
I think if you talk about GST, government has been learning over the years and improvising based on practical challenges as well. The new system is basically, I'm hoping that an outcome of the challenge that the industry has been facing. But in spite of all the efforts, there are still a lot of small challenges on the ground, teething issues that corporates, be it small businesses or large businesses, face. Government have to think through and take steps to overcome these small challenges as well. I'll give you small examples, which is basically pain, specifically for corporates. One, there is a technology adopted by GST which automatically cross-verify the values available in the return submitted, which is the value of turnover and value of input credit submitted by the corporate taxpayers in GSTR 3B, as against the filings made under GSTR 1 and GSTR 2, which is in credit data available based on filings made by taxpayers. Now there are a lot of possibilities and practical issues where while filing the final return, taxpayer can take credit for past period which must have been missed out. This is not getting considered while issuing a notice. So a notice gets issued automatically. You still, as a taxpayer, have to reply to that, go to the department, solve that. So it chokes the bandwidth for a corporate.
If you had to pick one GST reform for the government to prioritize, Sandeep, you already mentioned many, but that one reform that if you have to pick out of these, what would it be, and of course why?
So I think being a chartered accountant, my favorite would be which reduces my workload in doing a compliance, right? And that could be a problem that I or the fraternity ends up facing is on filing returns, specifically around 2B. The reconciliations, we have also been hearing that the new IMS system may introduce a user to actually go ahead and tick box and approve input credits, which again might complicate it further. So the thought is that government have to think through ways to ensure the input credit reconciliations and input credit availment procedures and process has to be simplified significantly. And if that's taken care of, I believe the first point of GSTR 1, which is sales update, is very simple. If the second GSTR 2 can be simplified, I think the overall experience can be very simple for corporates.
Perfect.
So that's one of my favorite. Work more around GSTR 2.
Thank you so much, Sandeep, for sharing your valuable insights. As we move closer to Budget 2025, it will be interesting to see how these expectations shape up. That's it for this episode of Tax Talks. Stay tuned as we bring you more insights and updates.